We have to make the decisions and take responsibility for our own wellness. And it's something that's alternative now will become mainstream someday. America's pharma industry was built upon a pill for an ill, treat the symptom, and make sure they're on that pill every day. That's how money is made. I will tell you, ketamine is an extraordinarily safe medication. So safe that in every single pediatric operating room where a child is put under, i.e. anesthetized, they use ketamine at 4, 6, 8 times the doses that we use for a psychedelic experience. And it's the standard in American operating theaters for children.
This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hello, and welcome to Vibe Science, where we say in health and wellness, there should be no alternatives. We believe in holistic approaches, mind, body, spirit. We believe in supplementation to modern medicine and bringing to light all that is good with alternative wellness. With that in mind, Chris Hansen, my co-host, is in Miami. What's up, Chris?
What's up, Brian? How are you, brother?
I'm wonderful, man. I'm pumped because we've got the co-founder and CEO of Nushama, Jay Godfrey. What's up, Jay?
What's up, gentlemen? How are you?
Couldn't be better. If I'd be on something illegal if it was any better.
No need for that. No need for that. Although I've heard they're good. There's plenty of legal options available.
No, I'm excited. You know, this is a field that I'm aware at a high level, but I know very little. If that makes any sense. I know there's all these things out there, and as we learn and bring to light all of these alternatives, and I hate the word alternative. You know, we say that, and that's what we're trying to make. They're really in making yourself well and in personal wellness, there really should be no alternatives. It should just be, what does it take to make me well from top to bottom? You know, and it doesn't all happen in a lab. It also doesn't all happen, at a doctor's office. So it's holistic, right?
We have to take back agency. We have to take back, I don't want to use the word control because that's a loaded one, but we have to make the decisions and take responsibility for our own wellness. And it's something that's alternative now will become mainstream someday. If you look at music, for example, there were times where Led Zeppelin or the Rolling Stones were considered the type of music that you shouldn't listen to. That's dangerous. Their ideas are nuts. And of course, now it's, Apple is paying for their songs to be on their television commercials. So what was once abhorrent, scary, ridiculous, alternative is now mainstream. And I fully expect psychedelic medicine to be the mainstream within 5 to 10 years.
So, Jay, let's set the table. What's Nushama and who is Jay Godfrey? Let's give everybody a little background.
Right. So I had a very normal, plain vanilla career. Actually, I'm a Canadian, born and raised in Toronto, Canada. I actually moved to New York City, where I reside now, to become an investment banker. And of course, I left investment banking because it was torture. And I felt like I wasn't creating anything. And somehow I landed myself as a women's wear fashion designer, which makes no sense. But I did. I went to design school and I wanted to try something creative. And I had this really quite amazing career for 15 years in fashion. But something still wasn't right. And about 2015, I started going to talk therapy. And I should set the stage a little bit. Talk therapy, when I was a kid, was what my parents threatened me with if I didn't behave. So it wasn't, we weren't one of those families where you share your feelings or, the word trauma ever came up. And look, I had a really good childhood, but talk therapy and sharing your feelings just weren't a thing. I grew up in a home of three boys, and we would, beat the shit out of each other and do very boy-like things. But here I was, 2015, running my fashion business in talk therapy. Every single week in New York City, where the best therapists really aren't covered by insurance, I'm paying $300. So you do simple math, 15 grand a year, did it for 3 years. I spent $45,000 in talk therapy. And in about 2018, I started thinking to myself, what has, I'm $45,000 poorer right now. I've dedicated hundreds of hours to talk therapy. And where am I? If I did an inventory, if I told myself or asked myself honestly, where am I at? I wasn't very much further along. I had some strategies, I had some good coping mechanisms, and my therapist remains to this day, although I don't see her anymore, a great therapist. So what was the problem, guys? Well, really simple. I was not a good patient. Why wasn't I a good patient? My ego was so entrenched. I was so addicted to my story, to my victimhood, to seeing things through the lens of not good enough, of scarcity. And that was very, very tough for me. So no matter what I told my therapist, that there was no healing to be had there. And in about 2018, as I'm doing this personal inventory, I read, I'm an avid reader, but I read the book How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. And it's really becomes a Bible of sorts for anybody interested in psychedelic therapy. And it talks about how, in the 50s and 60s, they were using these psychedelic medicines, LSD, psilocybin, ayahuasca, these different psychedelic compounds to treat what the medical system today would call psychiatric indications like depression, anxiety, PTSD, maybe even addictions. But what people in shamanic cultures 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years ago would just call ailments of the spirit. And despite not ever trying any drugs in my life, I was introduced to plant medicine shortly thereafter. And I started doing this work in 2019 where I work with plant medicine, and I discovered in my journeys that not only is the story of me not being good enough bullshit, it was total bullshit, and I saw where it came from, and it wasn't anybody's fault. It was a choice that I made when I was a child as a reaction to something that happened in the outside world. And during my plant medicine experiences in June 2020, I decided during COVID that the fashion industry wasn't what people wanted anymore. People weren't buying women's dresses, they were wearing sweatpants at home. So here I was in June 2020, my fashion business going right into the shit, and I was okay. I was totally okay. In fact, I was better than I ever was. And I felt chosen to do this work, and I felt that I'd already built a great brand in fashion, and my second mountain was really about bringing these medicines in a legal framework so that people who are suffering, and people during COVID were really suffering, and there still are, into the legal, medically supervised context. So we started Nushama with my two partners. Nushama is a legal psychedelic therapy clinic based in New York City. And we administer ketamine for the moment, and as the legal framework for psilocybin and MDMA loosen up and they become legal FDA-approved medicines, we will administer those as well for PTSD and depression and anxiety and a number of other psychiatric indications.
For whatever reason, and like you said, in the 50s and 60s, these things were being tested and advanced, and no different than hundreds of years ago, these plant-based medicines that were used to treat a lot of different conditions. These solutions and or the research and everything behind them got locked into a box, and we've been conditioned to think that they are the naughty box. And it's a real travesty, that we're just now getting enlightened on these things and advancing them. I just can't quite even grasp my head around why that happened. And I mean, and I know it's probably a dollars and cents thing. Let's be honest, like pharmaceuticals and all these changes. But what's your perspective on why these things have been in these lock boxes for so long?
Yeah, Ryan, if I may, the lock boxes that's a great term for it, because imagine taking something that's so valuable and locking it away from public consumption. And the reason this happened, really, you go back to the 60s and kind of the Woodstock era. And you saw how people then were taking molecules like psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, and LSD, and nobody wanted to go to war. Nobody wanted to be drafted after they took these molecules. People wanted peace and love and harmony. And while that sounds nice to each of us, imagine you're a government, that you're trying to recruit people for the fight in Vietnam. And all of a sudden you've got tens of thousands of young men and women saying, no, I'm good. All I want is peace and love. So it became a threat to the military-industrial complex. And people were starting to also get an idea that it was also a threat to what people would call today the pharma-industrial complex. America's pharma industry was built upon a pill for an ill, treat the symptom, and make sure they're on that pill every day. That's how money is made. So in the early 70s, the president at the time, Richard Nixon, didn't want any of this hippie stuff. Didn't want peace, love, and harmony. So he started the drug war. And the drug war was the Controlled Substances Act. And it basically said psilocybin, not MDMA at the time, but psilocybin, LSD, all the psychedelic medicines, in addition to the really dangerous stuff like heroin and methamphetamine and cocaine, which are actually dangerous or can be dangerous drugs, they got put in the same basket with psychedelics, which are non-addictive and can be helpful, and they lumped them into this kind of Schedule 1 status. And that was incredibly unfortunate. And not only was it unfortunate, the US government put billions upon billions upon billions, tens of billions of dollars promoting this falsehood that psychedelics are addictive and they're dangerous. And what we're finding out now is that is false. And slowly that glacier, that misinformation is kind of thawing as people are looking for new solutions.
Jay, I'd love for you to talk, for our listeners, and then, Chris, I'll let you add some thoughts here, but I would love for Jay to kind of talk through what happens at New Shama. What's the experience? Like, I think there's even me, I'm here to take notes, like mentally, I know enough to be dangerous, but like what happens in a ketamine, therapy treatment center, and what's that experience?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there's still a big black box for people, especially in light of the fact that the press is so focused on sensationalism versus truth telling. But maybe that's a different topic for a different day. But what happens in a ketamine treatment center? Well, people come to us and they'll come through our website and they'll say, you know what? I have depression, or I have PTSD, or I have anxiety, and I can't function. And most of these people are what you would call treatment resistant. People who've tried antidepressants or anti-anxieties or antipsychotics, and it hasn't worked for them. And so these treatment resistant folks come, and first step is they'll have what's called a medical intake with one of our doctors. And it's a psychiatric intake as well. And it either diagnoses them or reconfirms a diagnosis that another medical provider has provided. And really screens them to determine, is this a safe treatment for you? I will tell you, ketamine is an extraordinarily safe medication. So safe that in every single pediatric operating room where a child is put under, i.e. anesthetized, they use ketamine at 4, 6, 8 times the doses that we use for a psychedelic experience. And it's the standard in American operating theaters for children. But there are a couple things that, if you've got extraordinarily high blood pressure that's uncontrolled, if you've got certain thyroid issues, and if you're schizophrenic, ketamine is really not a safe option for you. However, outside of those kind of three major contraindications, most people, it's a very, very safe option for. And once they get cleared by the medical professional to determine that it is a safe treatment for you, we have a protocol of 6 sessions. Those 6 treatments are delivered via an IV, and it's done usually over a 3-week period. When you come into the center, most people are pretty surprised. It doesn't feel like a doctor's office. There's no lab coats. There's no stethoscopes. We don't want people to feel sick. People aren't, we've over-diseasified in the United States mental health conditions. People are not suffering from a biological disease when they have depression. They're not suffering from a disease when they've got anxiety. They're suffering from being human. Something's happened and they haven't been able to let it go. This facilitates that.
Chris, I'll let you chime in here.
I got no words. I mean, Jay, you're speaking in such a great way explaining this. Like I said, I've never done ketamine therapy. It's been, talked about. I've experimented with the plant medicines and it sounds similar in an aspect to how you describe it, because it's so hard to describe, and I think you do it beautifully. If I had no experience, I think you explain it in a way that's digestible for your average person, because even it took those experiences for me were similar. If I'm walking around town, I can see that low energy I just feel, I look around and I see people struggling, hurting, anxious, depressed. But I'm glad you brought on the veterans, because that was what swayed me into wanting to try the psychedelics was. And I thought about it earlier when we were talking about the military industrial complex. It's like the same government that's wanting these young guys to go over and fight these wars is the same one restricting the real access to the actual medicine for when they do come back. And I saw a lot of my friends went to Iraq and Afghanistan and came back and definitely had problems. And it wasn't until they leaned into these, holistic approaches and the plant medicine, the ketamine therapies, where there was profound changes in actual healing, and like you described, my experience, psychedelics, same thing. I went back and witnessed these events, these times in my life, completely detached, and I was okay with them, similar to me. I don't need to live those stories of me when I was 12 or whatever it is. It's just such an exciting time. And because I was not like you, I had, played with drugs and stuff, but psychedelics to me were always a big no-no. Like, I like to be in control. I'm not a hippie. I'm a business guy. All the propaganda, right, that I had fed into from the government and the movies or whatever. And it was one of those things after dinner, I'm like, God, I wish I would have done this years ago, man. Like, just relieve. Like, I encourage anyone listening, look into the ketamine therapies or these psychedelic therapies. It's like it changed my life, completely changed my life. And if I could choose any one thing to focus on right now, it would be psychedelic in the mental health space.
Depression, or as some people in New York like to call it, I'm stressed. So what is stress? Stress is, there's a chemical release called cortisol, which I'm sure you guys know something about. Cortisol creates, in all cases, inflammation. And inflammation is the gateway to every single disease known to mankind. So, stress can create disease. But the good news is the reduction of stress, the reduction of depression, the reduction of anxiety, the reduction of addiction can also free you from disease. And this is why I feel so strongly that ketamine therapy in the here and now, but MDMA-assisted psychotherapy, psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy in the future, when the FDA approves it, is not going to be last resort treatment, which is you're standing on the edge of the building ready to kill yourself, or drinking 20 drinks a day and getting cirrhosis of the liver, or that you can't get out of bed because you're unfunctional. This is going to be where people are like, you know what? I don't want to get to treatment resistance. I don't want to get where I'm prescribed 5 psychiatric medications and I've got to pay my therapist $300 a week and my psychiatrist or psychopharmacologist $250 every 2 weeks just to renew my prescription. We've got to get people back into balance, and back into balance means, and this is a little woo-woo, but people back into their hearts and out of their heads, out of the anxiety and into faith. And that is a big part of what psychedelic medicine does almost for everybody across the board.
Jay, what's the future of Nushama? Like what's your growth plans? What's ambitions, etc.?
So we've got this large center in New York where we've got 18 treatment rooms here. And because it's still new, people are like, you can do that in Midtown Manhattan? Yes, we have DEA licenses, and ketamine is an FDA-approved medicine. But the future, look, I'm very, very excited about it. Our ambition is to be a multi-site psychedelic wellness center, but not only multi-site, multi-modality. So I envision a time where instead of having 7,500 square feet, ketamine therapy only, I imagine we're almost going to be like a treatment center where we can use, when it's legal, psilocybin for major depressive disorder, MDMA for PTSD. There was a terrific study, a phase 2 study by the company MindMed released this week on LSD for generalized anxiety disorder. So I imagine people will come to Nushama with a very specific psychiatric indication, and we'll have a number of different protocols with a number of different psychedelic molecules, not only in New York City, but all across America. And that's what's very, very exciting for me as somebody whose life has been forever altered by this work, but also as an entrepreneur. It's a very, very exciting space to be in. And I can tell you with conviction, I get up every day with excitement, knowing that there's more people that we're going to help every single day.
Love it.
Hard to argue with that vibe.
It's a good vibe.
Where can everybody learn more about everything Nushama and you personally, Jay?
Yeah, so nushama.com, that's Nushama. Our website's a wealth of information, not only about what we do, but about psychedelics in general. So that's amazing. Our Instagram, @Nushama Wellness, all one word. Those are probably the best two, but we got some great videos on YouTube as well. And, this is just the beginning. We're not even in the first inning here, guys. And the next 5-10 years is going to be extraordinary for people having alternative and new methods of treating their mood disorders and their psychiatric indications. So there's never been a more exciting time to be in this field.
I love it. And I bet, you probably welcome people flying in and, spending, they're coming to visit New York. They can come see you and do treatment while they're visiting, I assume, correct?
Indeed.
So look at there. You get out, you can make your mind right and visit Manhattan at the same time. So, Jay, we really appreciate your time and flexibility and everything that you're doing with Nushama. Thank you so much for coming on Vibe Science.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hey, guys, you can find all of the highlight clips and full episode. That is vibesciencepodcast.com. You can find all the links there to Nushama and everything that's happening in this world of psychedelic medicine. For Chris Hansen in Miami, I'm Ryan Alford. We'll see you next time on Vibe Science.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.